In Venezuela, President Nicolás Maduro met with independent opposition leaders at Miraflores Palace. The International Monetary Fund forecasts for Argentina have worsened. It now expects economic activity to fall by 3.5% in 2024. And in El Salvador, local and international human rights organizations report that the state of emergency has seriously violated children's human rights. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The President of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, held a meeting with leaders of independent opposition seeking to ratify a consensual path for the preservation of peace in view of the upcoming presidential elections. During the reception at the Miraflores Palace, the head of state highlighted the approach with each opposition sector, which ratified its willingness to preserve peace, to work for the development of the country despite its adverse stances. In the meeting, Nicolás Maduro highlighted his pronouncement in favor of peace, coexisting, and the search for a consensual path. President of Parliament, Jorge Rodriguez, underlined the hope that these type of meetings will be repeated and send the message that beyond the differences, they can converge in common proposals for the defense of peace. The Colombian government informed on Tuesday morning that it had concluded the bilateral ceasefire with 24 structures of the so-called Central General Staff of the dissidents of the extinct Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, commanded by Iván Mordisco. Likewise, it was specified that the ceasefire will be maintained with 16 structures belonging to the Gentil Duarte and Jorge Suárez Briceño, with the Raúl Reyes Front, members of the Central General Staff, with which the executive has been in dialogue process since October. The announcement was made by the Minister of Defense, Iván Velázquez, who stated that the order given to all the Colombian armed forces is to carry out offensive operations with all their capabilities against the blocs and fronts that deviated from the government's offer in search for peace.
Presidenta de la República decretó el cese al fuego.
The President of the Republic decreed a bilateral and temporary ceasefire with respect for the civilian population between the General Staff of the Magdalena Medio, Commander Gentil Duarte and Commander Jorge Suárez Briceño blocks, and the Raúl Reyes Front for a period of 3 months. The order given to the military forces is to, with all their capabilities, carry out offensive operations against those organizations, those blocs and fronts.
The former Peruvian President Pedro Castillo presented the documentation to formalize his political movement Todo con el Pueblo before the National Jury of Elections as a previous step to run again for the presidency, according to his lawyer William Paco Castillo. The lawyer also clarified that this is not an immediate re-election, which is prohibited in Peru, in addition to the fact that the presidency is currently held by Dina Boluarte, but that former President Castillo can be a candidate as he was back in 2021. Furthermore, Pedro Castillo's lawyer dismissed the accusations against the former president, alleging that at no time he disbanded the governmental organizations, but rather that they remain operating. The International Monetary Fund forecasts for Argentina have worsened. It now expects economic activity to fall by 3.5% in 2024. The figure is much more pessimistic than the 2.8% drop initially forecast. Among the causes of this new debacle are the fall in consumption both by the state and by private consumers, and the decrease in the purchasing power of salaried workers. The lack of demand caused private investment to also suffer a sharp drop. Argentina is currently the only country that will have a fall in its activity in 2024, while countries such as Brazil and Mexico will increase between 2.1 and 2.2%. And the social crisis that Argentina is experiencing during the government of Javier Milei is worsening due to the increase in poverty and homelessness. teleSUR's correspondent in Argentina, Juan Carlos Bartolota, pointed out that the increase in poverty, which reached more than 50% of the population in May, and the lack of assistance policies on the part of the national government and the city of Buenos Aires worsened the problem. Bartolota commented that the census organized by NGOs and associations that help people in street situations carried out in December 2023 revealed that around 10,000 people are homeless. The journalist stated that Buenos Aires concentrates 85% of the homeless people in the whole country. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. In El Salvador, a report presented by several local and international human rights organizations highlighted the state of emergency declared by the President, Nayib Bukele, has seriously violated the human rights of children. In this sense, the report claims that 3,000 children and teenagers have been detained during the war against the gangs. In this way, it also emphasizes that minors have been doubly victimized, on the one hand by the gangs who have abused them, and on the other hand by the security forces who have mistreated them. In this regard, the report states that 1,000 children and teenagers have been sentenced to prison terms of between 2 and 12 years. It should be noted that in many cases the minors were forced to make false confessions. Several groups and organizations have criticized the installation of barbed wire fences in some of the trials through which migrants pass by the Colombian-Panama border bound for the United States. The measure has generated controversy both in the country and international.
The Panamanian government began its administration with the aim of putting an end to the irregular migration that has caused a humanitarian crisis in the Darien, for which José Raúl Mulino announced measures before taking office.
The patrols of the National Border Service have begun to set up blockades in most of these border paths, and so far one of these has been left open, notifying both the Colombian authorities and the people arriving at our border, which is the only place through which passage will be allowed.
More than 520 migrants crossed the Darien in 2023, and an estimated 800,000 people are expected to end up crossing these years en route to the United States. The Panamanian government will repatriate those who enter without a passport and also put out wire fences at some entry points, which has generated several criticisms.
Ponerle un alto a ese éxodo es lo que nos...
Putting a stop to this exodus is what puts us in discussion. How is it done? There is a position that is to repress, to close borders. In that case of the Darien plug, it is to plug the plug, which is quite difficult. The people who organize the exodus, maritime routes, etc., use it. I believe that this position is not effective. Although the Panamanian state has the right to manage its migratory policy, what this type of action does is dehumanize the migrant population. First, because the same thing happened in Texas last year. They put up a fence and streamers, and everyone in the United States condemned it. It so happens that now Panama is doing it, and they're not criticizing it. This is a violation of human rights. Second thing, they are going to provoke an imprisonment or social entrapment in the area of Colombia and in the beach area, especially in Acandí.
The Panamanian government agrees that the conditions of the migratory flow in Darien are often subhuman, and even President Mulino has described the money it generates for those who profit from it as cursed money. However, he has opted for strategies against the immediate consequences of migration without addressing, at least not publicly, the structural causes.
The issue of a trade embargo, or whatever you want to call it, embargo, blockade, whatever nomenclature you can give it, what is certain is that it is an absolute and total violation of international law. I have not seen any other country endure more than 50 years of these policies. It does not punish the governments, it punishes the peoples.
The United States will bear the cost of repatriation following an agreement signed with Panamanian President José Raúl Mulino on his first day in office. For teleSUR from Panama City, Rega Chandiramani.
Haiti expects during the following weeks and months the arrival of more Kenyans that will join forces with policemen and soldiers from Bahamas, Bangladesh, Barbados, Benin, Chad, and Jamaica for a total of 2,500 personnel. The Kenyan-led mission is meant to support Haiti's national police, which remains understaffed and underfunded, with only about 10,000 officers active at a time in a country of more than 11 million people. According to the UN, the mission also aims to quell criminal groups accused of killing more than 4,450 people last year and injuring more than 1,660 others. Despite these facts, Amnesty International warned about the arrival of the Kenyan troops, given their track record of using excessive and unnecessary force against civilians. The President-elect of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, declared on Tuesday that she will support with economic funds women who have been domestic workers and are in charge of caregiving tasks. During a meeting with women between 60 and 64 years old, many of them indigenous Mazahua and Mixtec, Sheinbaum assured them that her government will recognize the housework they do by giving them an economic support, a law initiative that is expected to be approved next September. In this sense, the elected president assured that the measure will bring more autonomy to women by allowing them to have their own resources. The action follows in the purposes of Sheinbaum's campaign, which promised the implementation of reforms and programs to promote substantive equality and eradicate violence against women. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken will meet on Wednesday with the ministers of foreign affairs of 11 countries of the American continent. This is the foreign affairs ministerial meeting of the Alliance for Economic Prosperity in the Americas, in which, in addition to the U.S., Barbados, Canada, Chile, Costa Rica, Colombia, Dominican Republic, Ecuador, Mexico, Panama, Peru, and Uruguay will participate, according to the State Department in a press release. They will discuss ongoing collaboration to realize the hemisphere's potential to foster inclusive, sustainable, and shared prosperity for all, the text reads. According to the State Department, the overall goal of the Partnership of the Americas is to make the Americas the most economically competitive region in the world. On Tuesday, it came out that the gunman who attempted to assassinate former U.S. President Donald Trump last weekend fired from a rooftop that the U.S. Secret Service had declared outside its security perimeter. According to Kenneth Valentine, as former Secret Service special agent, the assailant was able to get to the rooftop of an unguarded building, thus exposing a big hole in the event's security. The building was about 140 meters from the stage where Trump was speaking, and both local and state police claimed its supervision was not their responsibility. This lack of surveillance allowed the perpetrator, Thomas Matthew Crooks, to access the roof unimpeded and fire directly at Trump, raising his ear, killing one rally attendee and wounding 2 others. We have a final short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience. You can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean as well as the rest of the world. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back. The Palestinian resistance movement Hamas said in a statement that it accepted China's invitation to meet with other Palestinian factions to discuss the post-war future of the Gaza Strip. A member of Hamas political bureau and head of the National Relations Office, Hussam Batran, stated in a press release that the Anadolu agency that Hamas and the Palestinian factions have received a kind informed invitation from the People's Republic of China to hold an expanded factional. On Tuesday, China's foreign ministry stressed its readiness to provide a platform and create opportunities for Palestinian factions to reconcile and dialogue, but did not confirm the meeting. However, Hamas and the Fatah party already met in the Chinese capital last April. At least 10 Palestinian civilians were killed on Wednesday amid Israeli shelling and artillery attacks on several towns in the Gaza Strip territory. The attack occurred in the vicinity of the Sunna Mosque, south of the Nusayrat Palestinian refugee camp. At least 2 civilians were killed and others were injured in an Israeli airstrike on a residential building which houses displaced people in the Nuseirat area. In Gaza City, Israeli artillery targeted homes in the Tal al-Awa neighborhood, southwest of the city, while warplanes targeted the Abu Iskandar area in the Sheikh Radwan neighborhood north of Gaza. In a new devastating wave of Israeli terrorist violence, the Zionist army carried out several airstrikes that wreaked havoc in the Gaza Strip, killing dozens of civilians and injuring many more. One of the most affected areas was the city of Han Yunis, where 13 civilians were killed and many wounded after an airstrike targeted the Al-Atad area at the west of the city. Meanwhile, in Beit Lahia, northern Gaza, 4 civilians were killed and 5 others were wounded during Israeli shelling of a gathering of civilians at the Sheikh Zayed traffic circle. Local health authorities confirmed that the death toll from the Israeli attacks exceeds 38,700 and the number of wounded exceeds 89,100. Following Israel Defense Forces drone strikes in southern Lebanon, at least 5 people were killed, including 3 minors, according to the authorities. Health officials confirmed the death of these 2 adults, while the army said that they are working to decipher the identities of these 2 deceased people. In the case of the minors, the national news agency said that they were hit by an Israeli drone in al-Tut, a locality located in the district of Tire. In addition, the local press reported that the children were playing in front of their homes on a farm where their parents worked when they were attacked. More than 200 people have been killed as a result of consecutive attacks by Ukrainian forces on the Russian territory of Belgorod. According to the governor of that region, Vyacheslav Gladkov, the number of wounded is estimated at 1,100 people. On the other hand, the city of Belgorod is the scene of frequent attacks not only by Ukrainian forces, but also by paramilitary groups opposed to the Kremlin government. This is demonstrated by artillery attacks on Tuesday on 3 localities in that Slavic border region where fortunately no one was injured. Last May, the Russian army renewed its military offensive from the Kharkov province to prevent Ukraine from shelling border towns of the Slavic country. We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.